This is really hard to talk about, but I think that it needs to be said because I feel like not only do I want a record of this as kind of my own personal journal entry, but if this information can help anybody else out there, then it's worth it for me to put myself out here. So give me just a moment. I suffered a medical emergency while I was driving down Interstate 4 by myself, and I am going to tell you about what happened today. Fortunately, in my favor, everything turned out okay, and I'm here to talk about it. But I did learn a few really important things through this that I am definitely going to be sure to do anytime I go out into the world in the future, and I think that it's some good safety tips that we all should keep in mind when it comes to especially solo travel and being safe and being prepared for any kind of emergency, because apparently anything can and does happen at any time. So let's get into what happened to me. I'm going to be honest, I thought I would get a little bit further into the video before I got emotional. I did not plan to start this crying, but every time I hit play or record, that's what happens. So we're just going to go with it, and I'll just keep taking breaks so that you don't have to deal with my hysterics. I'm Heather. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back, and thank you for sticking with me. And I am going to stop blabbering and just get right into it. So, ironically, I was heading out of town to go to Mayo Clinic, where some of you may know I have been referred to for my ongoing chronic illness and autoimmune issues and all of my fun health stuff that's been getting progressively worse over the months. And I was planning on solo car camping at Anastasia State Park, one of my favorite Florida state parks that's right on St. Augustine Beach in a beautiful location. I've done videos on it. You can check those out if you want to see some happier material after this video and some of my typical content on here versus today's topic. But anyways, I was on I-4 heading down the road, and I have been having ongoing issues with, heaviness in my arms and legs, tingling, like my hands and feet will randomly fall asleep, so there's definitely been some ongoing neurological and circulation issues. And, I've been through all the preliminary tests, and I have other tests pending and other tests scheduled. But, all of the doctors have been in agreement that my strength itself is still, right on par, nothing concerning there as far as like muscle weakness from an exam standpoint, that it's just more of like the sensation of that, and that it is decreased strength, but not to where it's concern. So anywho, as I was heading down the interstate, I continued to get my pins and needles and my normal kind of heaviness and tingling, falling asleep feeling in my legs and arms. And suddenly it just started getting progressively worse fast. Like my arms started feeling heavier and heavier in a matter of just a few seconds. And I rested my arms on the armrests thinking, okay, if I have something to rest my arms on and I'm not holding them up, that'll help. So I was resting them while holding the steering wheel, and they continued to feel progressively heavier. My legs started to feel heavier. My head went numb and cold. My lips and my face went completely numb. And then I realized that this time it wasn't just a matter of me feeling like my hands had fallen asleep. My limbs were not responding to me at all. So I wasn't able to lift my legs off the seat or lift my arms at all, except for by my side. I could lift this part of my arm, but nothing from here up. Like I couldn't move my arms out or up. And that's when I panicked and realized, okay, this is something else. This is something new. And thankfully, I had my hands free phone holder right in front of me. Thankfully, it was on already, unlocked, and navigation mode so that I did not have to unlock it, because at that point, when I was realizing that I was going to need to call 911 and find a way to pull off somehow safely to the shoulder of the highway as rush hour traffic was starting to build in the morning, that my thumbs were not working. They were frozen like this, and I could not move them like this. They just were stuck. They would not move. And then I noticed that my hands were starting to feel weird like that too, and tightening up. My legs were tightening up to where I was able to still move my foot, but I couldn't curl my toes. And at that point, the exit sign showed up saying, exit ahead. I realized that I could just pull right off. Somehow I managed to dial 911 with this finger because, again, I couldn't move my thumb. So I managed to hit 911 like this before I lost control of my fingers pretty much altogether and was hardly able to hold the steering wheel. Somehow I managed to get onto the exit ramp as I was dialing 911 was calling on speaker. The light somehow managed to be green at the time so that I didn't have to stop, because I wasn't sure I would be able to push all the way on the brake if needed. And I just, at that point, my number one priority was not to hurt anybody else on the road and to get stopped as safely as I possibly could without hopefully obstructing traffic or causing a more dangerous situation. And by some miracle, it was the only exit around that had a standalone emergency room immediately off the exit on the very first right turn. So I was able to coast off the exit. That light was green too. I was able to turn right and literally just pull right into a completely empty emergency room parking lot. I didn't realize after the 911 operator had asked whether it was medical or fire, and I said medical emergency, and then she said, "Where are you?" Some point when I was talking, the call must have dropped, which I didn't realize, because when I was in the parking lot and looked down, I saw that it was just my normal navigation screen again. But I had at least made it into the parking lot. I wasn't able to turn the car off, but I was able to get it into park with this part of my hand. And then I just kind of laid back to rest my head on the rest and try to put my feet out in front of me as much as I could and just relax with my arms rested. And I noticed in my side view mirror as I was leaning back that there were officers approaching my vehicle from multiple sides. So I'm guessing the dispatcher was able to locate me with GPS and give them my last location before the call dropped. And they kind of cautiously approached my car, and I could hear one of them say to the other officer, "Yeah, there's somebody in there." And I wasn't able to open my door yet. These fingers were starting to move a little bit again, but I still couldn't move my arms much or the rest of my body. So I kind of had to lean against the door like this and just kind of fiddle with the handle to get the door open enough finally to where it would automatically unlock. And then I was able to speak to the officer, and I said, "Are you responding to the call?" And they said, "Yes." "Was that you?" And I was trying to explain what had happened, that I was, heading down the road to my appointment with Mayo Clinic, and that my arms and legs just were suddenly not working properly. And I just happened to be able to get off at the exit and, explained everything. And one of the officers had run inside to the emergency room to have someone come out with a wheelchair. The other officers were kind enough to assist me out of the vehicle. And because thankfully I had already been planning on going to my appointment at Mayo Clinic that morning, I already had my, hospital bag packed with my paperwork in it and all of my medical records and my wallet and my purse and my water bottle, everything that I thought I was going to need for a whole day of being at the doctor's. So I was able to just point to that. They were able to get that and put the bag in my lap. They were able to get my ID out and confirm that it was me and that it was my vehicle, and give my ID to the hospital so that they could pull up all of my information since I was already in the system. And they were able to check me in that way since I wasn't able to hold a pen or fill out any paperwork, and I was having difficulty talking at the time because I was very out of breath and obviously in crisis mode. So they wheeled me back in the wheelchair to the ER doctor that was there, and I started explaining a little bit of what happened. And as soon as they realized, that I had ongoing history that I was actually heading for treatment for, and that I was already kind of a complicated medical case, they kind of put me right through as a priority. They wheeled me into a room. They started getting, CT scans and x-rays and all of that done, and to make sure that it was not like sepsis or anything life-threatening at that moment. And when the initial round of tests came back that, it was not a stroke or sepsis or something that was, immediate life or death, they asked if it was all right if they admitted me, and if so, they were going to have to transport me to one of the hospitals that actually had rooms, since this was a standalone emergency center. So I consented, and that's when I got to take my very first and hopefully very last ambulance ride ever. And so now here I am back in my own bed at home base after spending 3 days in the hospital doing some tests, having IV fluids and IV steroids and other medications to where I can feel at least to my old level of bad instead of this, whatever this thing was. And I do still have my upcoming tests that will hopefully give me further answers. But, so there you have it. That was my exciting ordeal. And you may be asking why I am sharing my trauma or trauma dumping on you all. Well, honestly, there were a few things that I think were really key in getting me to safety. And it wasn't planned ahead of time since I did not foresee this at all. But going forward, there are things that I'm definitely going to make sure are in place at all times. And that's always having my phone in the thing. Even if I'm not using navigation, making sure that I always have it with me on its hands-free mount so that I don't have to reach for it, grab for it, look for it in case of an emergency. It's right there, right in front of my face. I also have deactivated my Hey Google because I thought it was annoying whenever it thought I was saying it or whenever it thought it heard it on a song on a radio. So I disabled it, but I am definitely going to be re-enabling that so that if I need to use voice commands to dial for emergency help, that I can do that. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. Also, having any emergency contact information or anything that's super important or pertinent if you were to be in an emergency where maybe you couldn't explain or show or get the information yourself, to have it easily, readily available. One of my friends shared that they tape their emergency contact information to the top of the visor, just in case there's ever an issue while they're in the car. That information would all be right there, readily available. So I think that's a fantastic idea. But having my ID handy, having all of my emergency information, my records with me in one spot so that they can see that it's, an ongoing medical thing, and I don't have to worry about, any potential complications or anything from that aspect. So I think that those are super important things. Obviously, if you don't already have chronic health issues, you wouldn't have that. But any type of important paperwork, if you have pets, what you want to happen as far as that, if there's somebody that can be contacted, anything like that, make sure that you have that on you where it can be found if somebody is looking for it in case of an emergency. Because I had my information with me, I already had a list of my medications, a list of my doctors, a list of my symptoms that were handy. So if they had needed me to provide a lot of that information, I would have had that with me. So that may be something you want to consider as well if you're kind of in a similar scenario or situation as I am health-wise. But if you have that emergency device where you can call for help satellite, if you're going to be traveling in any areas out of service, make sure you have that right up front, right easily available, so that if you don't have cell service and you have an emergency, you don't have to look or reach or fiddle for it. If you can't easily access it, it's already right there on you. So these are just kind of things, basically it was just a reminder to me that anything can happen at any time and that you just need to make sure you're as prepared as possible. I do also want to reassure everybody that I am doing my due diligence, my own research. I am advocating for myself. I also feel like I have finally a team of doctors that are really trying to find the answers. And even though this was a very traumatic event for me, and I'm pretty sure I am suffering some PTSD because of it, it really kind of just drove home for me. I think it really did end up, sounds so crazy saying it, but working out for the best, because it was the best possible outcome if that were going to happen. I happened to be at one of the only places where I would have been able to get to an emergency room. Had I started to experience it even before I had left home base, I would have still had to wait for emergency to come to me. This ended up, as much as I hate to say it, getting me to a place of where at least we kind of know more of what we're looking at, even though I don't have my official diagnosis and my definitive answers yet. We did end up making some significant progress, not the way I wanted to, but progress nonetheless. And so we do have a little more focus and a little better idea of what we're dealing with and what to look for. Unfortunately, I do still have to wait for some additional testing to come back and potentially some more to be ordered before I'm going to get the answers that I need. But we do, again, have a better idea. So I just kind of want to assure everybody of that I am doing everything possible to get my answers. So just please treat this video with kindness and kind of be gentle with me. It was really hard to put myself out there and share such a personal and traumatic experience with you all. But like I said, I really do think that it could help other people. And that's kind of why I've been sharing my whole journey with everything to begin with, my travels, my car camping, the things that I learn, and now my health journey as well, because I feel that it helps to talk about it. It helps me to talk about it and put it out there and kind of unburden it. And I think that it helps for other people to know that they're not alone when they're experiencing these types of hardships or crises either. So if you've made it this far, I really, really appreciate it. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you to everybody that has reached out with their comments and their messages and their support and well wishes. It means the world to me. I appreciate you all so much. And I will see you again very soon for something a little lighter than this. Bye.